According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, currently MSM account for nearly half of the more than 1 million people living with HIV in the United States today. MSM is the acronym used by clinicians to designate those men who are just about exclusively having sex with other men. Hello, my name is Major Mike Webb, and I am running for Arlington Public School Board. Most know that I am the son of a preacher man, and a pretty conservative fundamentalist Baptist at that. But for the next few minutes, let's place that aspect of my personal history aside, and let's just talk about the science, which has been a very popular subject for many over a year now, and at least some believe that it was a championship for science in the last presidential election. And now with over half of Virginians vaccinated, with over 144,000 in Arlington alone, where we have more government scientists than just about anywhere and are ranked 14th in graduate degrees, who have been administered at least one shot, which some view as another triumph for science. Let's just shift gears from a pandemic pathogen and pause to observe Pride Month like a scientist. And you know science, right? On June 1st, the nation's only physician serving as a state governor, Ralph Northam, issued a proclamation stating that we should recognize June 2021 as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer plus Pride Month in our Commonwealth of Virginia, and wanted to call this observance to the attention of all our citizens. Yet, since the 1980s, at least no parade, no festive parties, no discussion panels, and not even any legislation will alter the scientific reality that over 1 million Americans, a little less than double the number who were fatalities to a novel coronavirus, are living with AIDS. And over half of those infected are men who are engaging in sexual intercourse with other men. And there is no cry for social distancing, no demands for staying at home, no mandates for persons to wear masks or volunteer for vaccines or tests. Did I disturb your concentration? Did I disrupt your party? In the military, leaders conduct what is called a composite risk assessment, as we discussed in reference to reopening schools safely in a previous video. And the two most important steps in that composite risk assessment are first to develop a comprehensive understanding of the threat or condition that creates the risk. And only after that preliminary exercise of rigorous study and review of all available facts can one reasonably be expected to develop preventative measures to mitigate or even eliminate that threat. So, not to disturb the festive celebrations for Pride Month, but according to the scientists at the CDC, 1 in 5 gay, bisexual men in the 21 U.S. cities hardest hit by AIDS have HIV infections, and nearly half don't even know it. A walking time bomb, spreading infections uncontrolled primarily to other men engaging in sex with other men. Perhaps even more concerning than not knowing where to use a restroom. But apparently, by the rainbow flags we find across the fronts of places of worship that were closed during a pandemic, this lack of knowledge is something about which all should be proud. And to tell the gay men would be hateful discrimination. Let them have their fun, pursue their entitlements to sexual pleasure, because it is all about love, and Virginia is for lovers, after all. But if you are out on the prowl today and looking for a quick hookup, you might want to be careful about that hottie, because according to CDC, black gay bi men and under gay bi adults are are least likely to know of their infections, while black men overall are 2 times more likely than Hispanic or white men to be living with AIDS. But they are more likely sometimes to be aware, overall black men, that they are infected. And you know the science, right? Then make a plan. Let's examine this problem by the numbers. Like scientists, black men who are infected are more likely to know that they are infected, although not so much when they are younger and hot, but represent 2 times more likely than whites or Hispanics to be infected. Persons who know they are infected are assumed to use that knowledge to be safe and prevent infecting others, a big theme during pandemic. And we have gone for decades with no government mandate for social distancing or altering behaviors, and not even one vaccine. But we can all celebrate in June because to do otherwise would just simply be hateful. And did you know that many in the scientific community are even concerned about the fact that while 58% of whites in the U.S. support same-sex marriage, less than 40% of blacks do, just being haters. They may have voted for Trump, according to the Washington Post. And according to their report by Brandon Ambrosino, a religious news reporter, we need to work more to prevent historical attitudes in black churches that force men inside the church to feel shame and live on what has been popularly called the down low. Or perhaps you heard this same story on NPR, where commentator Keith Boykin, who is an African American too, and gay, called it a paradox, saying the church might be the most homophobic and most homo-tolerant of any institution in the black community. Somebody has to play the organ. The Democrats in Congress just passed Juneteenth, a celebration of the wrong day for abolition of slavery, joining a Virginia for Lovers during Pride Month. And we probably don't yet have enough black gay men already infected with AIDS or other gay, hottie, bisexual, and younger men who have been infected with AIDS, but just don't know yet. It has been said that over half the black males in D.C., besides suffering an achievement gap in education in underperforming public schools, are in the correctional system. But nationally, about 6% of working age, that is 18 to 64 years old, black men, were in state or federal or municipal incarceration, which is 3 times higher than other demographics. And in Pride Month, most should recognize that there are wonderful, abundant opportunities to be proud and wear a rainbow in prison. You might say that, like that God that is everywhere, opportunities to be gay are everywhere in prison. While black women are more likely by far not only to graduate to college and begin careers, so nobody should wake up surprised to learn that over 53% of black men have never been married. Quite different from in the 1960s when black males were the most likely of anyone to be married, and are still more likely to be married than black women. And 33% of black men are actually currently married. But suddenly things changed in the 1960s when all of the Democrats became good and all of the Republicans became racist. And nobody wants to fool with you in your hood shenanigans when they are moving on up to the east side. So, brother, you'll just have to deal with it. Maybe be gay. While in the 1970s, even the Evans family in Cabrini Green Projects were having good times as a 2-parent family with a patriarch figure like over 70% of African American families. But today they represent less than a quarter. while black women are far outpacing just about every demographic on completion of degrees, despite opportunities opening to at least 50% of black males, who today can say that they went to a college. Only less than half of those ever obtain a degree, even from an HBCU, where attrition outpaces other colleges exponentially, averaging around 23% who even complete a degree in 4 years. Consequently, only 19% of black men even hold a college degree. So if you have a college degree, you should actually consider yourself quite lucky as a black man, even if 41% can claim to hold what can be called a white-collar job, which could mean anything if you are not performing manual labor, working at the plant. Most can agree that black-on-black violence is killing black folks. Most can agree that blacks outpacing every demographic on abortions is not increasing their population. Most can agree that a novel coronavirus paid a deadly toll on the black lives that are supposed to matter, and that schools were closed for over a year, robbing everyone who could not afford or develop an alternative for education and social development. The consequences of which scientists say may persist for many years, and even according to the Wall Street Journal, find impacts on future earning potential. But in a year in which, through what was called gains of function, through natural selection, finding less than 5% infectious pathogen, a single strand of RNA, a genome measured in nanoparticles, developing a strategy somehow to infect over 33 million Americans, close businesses, schools, and churches, force you to wear a mask, stay at home and get vaccinated, and even apparently escape from a lab, all because that nanoparticle acquired an advantage through natural selection and no mental choices at all. Did it without thinking at all. In this Pride Month, with 1 million persons living with HIV, most young and bisexual men not even knowing if they are infected, and black men being 2 times more likely than anybody else to be living with HIV infection, rather than getting religious and asking what would Jesus do. Rather than getting religious and asking if you have made your decision for Christ. Let me just ask this. As a scientist, what would Darwin say?
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.
I want to stay